reaction yesterday to Mike McCarthy basically saying he wanted to scale the offense back. Why are we trying to be the highest scoring team in the league? Why are we trying to be number one on the points board? Why? Why are we doing that? No, I want to run the damn football and give our defense a rest. Reaction on ESPN with our boy Dan Orlovsky and Dan Graziano. They were baffled.
What are you doing? Are you admitting to the world that you fired your offensive coordinator because you scored too many points? Is Mike McCarthy in some kind of competition committee meeting where they've decided to change the way of determining outcomes of games by how rested your defense is instead of how many points you score versus how many the other team? I mean, come on, man. It's 2023. There are people running around here that heard that and said it sounded like a different language to them. We've moved past 4 points.
Andy Reid wants to light up the scoreboard.
Right?
I think it's working out well for him. If you think that just running the football is the key determining factor in winning a Super Bowl in the NFL, you're watching a different NFL than me right now. I think winning in the NFL is about throwing to score, running to win. And you got to throw early on in football games. I don't think what was said about – listen, Kellen Moore's the next quarterback. He's going to want to score a ton of points, all that stuff. The Cowboys didn't lose last year because they were unable to run the football in certain moments. The Cowboys lost last year because the quarterback threw too many interceptions in critical moments. That's the candid reason why. And injuries piled up to their roster. It wasn't because of them wanting to score more points than the other team or trying to light up a scoreboard, so to speak. So I don't necessarily agree with kind of the philosophy behind that.
Yeah, well, McCarthy would counter back by saying, as he did in Indianapolis, Dak's not going to throw as many interceptions because he's not going to have the ball in his hands as much. We're not going to be as wide open, so we're not going to turn the football over. And that takes us to the analytical side of things, where RJ Choppy does his patented research studies, and you have said a few times on the show that turnovers are overrated anyway.
A little bit overrated anyway in today's NFL. Historically, they're not, but, you know, when teams throw as much as they do, they score in super fast. There's more possessions. The better teams want more possessions. Alabama is going to hate when they stopping the clock at first downs because they want more. The more possessions there are, the better it is for the better teams. It gives them more opportunities to score, more opportunities to win. When you shrink the game, you allow for a lot of variance and luck to come into play. It's a dumb philosophy. It's really, really dumb. And the Cowboys are going to do that. They're going to purposely try to shorten a football game. That is not something you should do when you're in a position of power. The Cowboys are in a position of power. They've got 12 wins each of the last 2 years. Now, you want to do it in the postseason when all the teams are great? Fine, knock yourself out. In the regular season, man, that is not the way to go and be consistent and win.
I'm more supportive of this than many are because to me, the definition of insanity is banging your head against the wall over and over and over again. I feel like I initially saw the Dak Prescott light and then he kind of changed my mind when he went on his MVP-type run a couple of years ago in the first half of the season, 2 years ago, when he started off against Tampa Bay. And I was like, okay, this is even last year when the Cowboys were telling us we don't completely trust him. We want to run. We want to play defense. You and I were in agreement. That's dumb.
Yeah.
That's not the way to win. And then after watching them and Dak throughout the season and in the playoffs, I said, you can't win this way. They're not going to be able to win this way, putting most of it on his shoulders. It's going to have to be built around him if it's going to happen. So that's why I'm in a little bit more support of this, even though the divisional round tells the story. Which team is built like San Francisco in the divisional round? Kansas City's not. Their score. Philadelphia. The Giants kind of played like this, right? They got lucky last year. They kept games close. But again, as RJ's saying, you are living a dangerous life playing games that close. Philadelphia was high octane. Cincinnati, high octane. Buffalo, high octane. San Francisco beat us. and then you have Jacksonville as the final team in the divisional round.
Okay, let me ask you this, because I think that people think that when you throw the ball less and run the ball more, first of all, we're seeing a lot of the time of possession hasn't really lately been a great indicator of who wins. But let me ask you this. How many fewer plays does he think he's going to have by running the ball? So the 49ers are supposed to be this super run-first team. They averaged 4 fewer plays than the Cowboys did last year per game.
Wow.
4. The run-first Philadelphia Eagles that you want to emulate actually ran 1.5 more plays per game last year than the Cowboys did.
Wow.
Okay, this is one of those things that is like one of those old idioms or sayings or whatever that doesn't really make sense and is rooted in nothing. There's no factuality behind any of this. Running the football doesn't mean that you're shrinking the game. The San Francisco 49ers, the run-first 49ers, ran a grand total of 4 fewer plays per game. What a whopping number that is. The difference in the league between the team that ran the most plays per game and the fewest is 12 plays. That's in the entire NFL. 12 plays. 12. It's simply not... this was a comment to get people riled up. That's it. And go look. Go look at the teams that ran the fewest plays in the league. Let me know. Stop me when you hear a playoff team here. Carolina, Tennessee, Chicago, Rams, New England, Atlanta, Houston, New Orleans. I mean, I can keep going. And that's it. And then the teams that ran the most, I mean, outside of Washington, I mean, most of these teams were playoff teams.
What has the text line looked like in terms of agreement or disagreement, outrage, or Patty McCarthy on the back for taking the ball a little bit more out of Dak's hands? Even carrying over from yesterday, the overall theme and feeling.
The overall theme is that, you know, they like this. They want to run the ball. That's the overall theme in general. Now the smart people, disagree with that statement, and I support those. But majority is like,
Let me ask you this question.
Let
me ask you this question. What level of quarterback would you, and your answer just may be flat out 0. What level of quarterback would you need to have on your team in order to support this approach?
All right, so I wouldn't do it.
Because you and I are in agreement that Dak isn't consistently fantastic.
Right.
He has flashes. Right? So I think the follow-up is, when do we decide to go with this approach based upon the level of quarterback?
All right, so just look at last year. I wouldn't do it with Tom. I wouldn't do it with Herbert. I wouldn't do it with Kyler. I would do it with Washington. I wouldn't do it with Hurts. I wouldn't do it with Watson. Man, I mean, I think maybe...
Because this was the Parcells approach.
Yeah, it was.
And he never had great quarterbacks except for, Bledsoe.
Yeah, I wouldn't have done it with Dak. I wouldn't have done it with Burrow. I wouldn't have done it with Allen. I wouldn't have done it with Goff. I wouldn't have done it with Mahomes. Daniel Jones, I would have. Russ last year, I would have. Lawrence, no. I mean, I guess Kirk? Below Kirk?
Okay.
But I think I have Kirk on the low end. Because I've got Dak ahead of Kirk. I like Carr better than Kirk. I like Goff better than Kirk. So I would say Kirk. I would say Kirk or below. Or maybe below Kirk. That's where I would go.
And then when you look at passing attempts, how that correlates, right, to winning last year, Brady was 1. They made the playoffs even though they had a down year. Herbert was 2. Mahomes was 3. Cousins was 4. Vikings got in. Burrow was 5. They got in. Goff was 6. Lions were fringe. Lawrence was 7. They got in. Geno was 8. Good season. Josh Allen, 9. They got in. And then Aaron Rodgers, Derek Carr, Russ, Davis Mills. So the first 9 guys basically show, pass attempt-wise, that's what you do. And Mike McCarthy wants to go against it. So Broadus' main point yesterday, his main point of contention, he was going at McCarthy for not making Kellen adjust this over the past couple seasons or even last year. He said, why wasn't Mike McCarthy in the meetings as the leader and the overseer of the program saying, this is the way to do it? What do you make of that criticism? Do we give Mike credit for being hands-off and not interfering? Or do we criticize him for not, adjusting it a little bit. I think of it like the head chef of a restaurant, right? These celebrity chefs, they don't cook anymore. You know, my guy Samir over the state, he don't do jack squat. He just puts on his nice little fancy uniform. He probably puts an A1 stain on his shirt to make it look like he's done something. Shakes hands, kisses babies, takes all his photos. He ain't cooking, but he goes back there and he checks. And if someone's overcooking a steak or the potatoes aren't right, I'm sure he says, yo, fix that, adjust it. That's what Broadus wanted McCarthy to do.
I understand that, and he probably should have. I don't know what, but then again, maybe he didn't.
What are we fixing? Statistically, I mean,
if I'm Kellen and he came in there and said to me, like, bro, what do you want? We're one of the most efficient offenses in the NFL. You know, we were top half of the league in per play efficiency, and we had Cooper Rush for half the year.
I wonder if this makes any Tolo second guess their criticism of Kellen. Kellen Moore, everyone wanted him out of town. I thought the criticism, numbers-wise, I'm looking at the resume on paper, very difficult to destroy Kellen like DFW did, and I wonder if McCarthy's comments that are so opposite are making some rethink, trying to kick Kellen to the curb.
All this is simply a move you make when you don't have a quarterback. That's all it is. When you don't have a quarterback,
Indictment.
This is a move you make when you don't have one. And maybe that's what Mike's saying.